What's up, world? We're doing another one. I learned some powerful things today. I wrote some of it down, so I'm probably going to have to do several different videos. So, today was a very busy day, just like how I like it. And today, we were running into a lot of issues where Windows 10 is now becoming an expired subject. Security updates, I think Microsoft might be still releasing some of the security updates. I'm not 100% sure. But in the corporate enterprise, if you're working at a company, they should not be using Windows 10 unless, of course, they're paying for those end-of-life additional security updates. But a lot, the world is moving towards Windows 11, so this migration hit hard where people either did not get notified that they needed to replace their machines, or they blatantly ignored it, which is something that people typically do in the workplace. They'll be communicated to. Somebody will email them or call them, and then they just don't want to do it. So you know how human nature is. The world will force you to do what needs to be done at some point. There's no getting around it. And they had to force their hand. So somebody made a change where basically your machine just wasn't working anymore. Your machine wasn't working anymore. And so that made it to where everybody had to be extremely busy, the way I like it. Let's talk more work. So I was having a conversation, with a sister at work. And basically talking about how do you get moved around, and this, what's the lay of the land? Give me the outlook on the yard. And she basically said, look, you need to talk to certain people. You need to, and it's something that I told my class many years. I decided now I need to take my own advice. And so I kind of needed to hear that. I'm not bigger than the program. You know what I'm saying? All I am is just a communication effort. I'm just a voice. I'm the voice, and I don't think I was necessarily sent here to do it. I just decided to just do it, but I'm just a voice. That's it. I'm just a messenger for y'all. That's all. I decided to give a message, and I wrote it down. And now I'm talking about it on video, a message that I've had for many years. So I actually had to learn my own message again. I've never really had nobody help me with any positions or anything like that before. So I said, you know what? I've never asked anybody for that. I said, you know what? I'm about to ask. I'm going to ask for help. Hey, I want to know how this works. You know what I'm saying? And I did. She said, you need to go up there. And at one point they had this expo. But, I could just go up and get some snacks. But, when you're contracting, they're like, okay, nah. So, and I'm like, okay, that didn't work. And as black folks, when you hear something like that, you're like, okay, why didn't they let you? Okay, so let's try this. So I'm like, hey, help me get up there, help me get to where I'm trying to be. And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna help. So that's something that I needed to hear today. Now here's the thing, like I was telling my homie, I said, there's a position out here right now. There was two positions I'm working on. One position was working with a steel company. I didn't like the rate, and the position wasn't really a fit for me. So I said, okay, let me see what the brothers need. I said, let me see the brothers that I was speaking to and I've been working with and trying to get them, landed some positions. And I said, okay, this position is out here in Plymouth, Minnesota. He's like, all right, send me over. So I got on the phone immediately and told that lady, because she wanted to, it was off Indeed. She wanted to, they liked my resume, everything about it. But the rate of the range wasn't for me. I said, no, I'm already, past that. So, that ain't going to help me, So eventually what she did, is he going to let me go? Okay. What she did, when I told the recruiter, I said, look, I need this. Well, we can't do that. I said, well, I know somebody that could do that. She's like, okay, well, send them to me. And that's what I did. Then another position came by. This position was in St. Paul. that was 40 an hour. And it was similar to things that I've done before. I said, okay, I'm not going to learn nothing there, but somebody else might need that 40. So I'm going to send that. I send it to one of my guys, and he's like, well, I'm doing mostly remote. I'm like, well, it's 100% remote or 100% on site. So if you kind of 4 days in, so he's like, well, I don't know. So I get it. I'm like, well, no, take that 4 days. You know what I'm saying? If you can't learn more than what you're doing, just do what you do, and then just keep getting your certs and stuff like that, which that's what he was doing. So I got this $40 an hour position that's open, but it's 100% on site in St. Paul. So that also happened today. That was also a thing that happened today. So, I said, all right, let me talk to some of the brothers and the sisters that, are in this environment. So, I was just trying to learn the lay of the land. I've been here a while. It's been getting close to a year, but I'm still learning the lay of the land because I kept reaching out to recruiters, or what I started to do is people that I knew that were managers for some of this stuff, I started asking questions whenever I was giving them assets or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, damn, I ain't really getting no reach. And, I figured, well, and then I talked to some of the recruiters and the people in talent acquisition. I still ain't getting nowhere. I said, okay, I know they getting these emails that I'm asking. It don't work like that. You got to know somebody to know somebody that knows somebody, as Trick Daddy says. Everybody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. That's a classic line from Trick Daddy from Florida. He's not lying. I overheard somebody talking about somebody they liked on a different team. Oh, they're reliable, they're this, that, and the third, and they got this infectious laugh. Charisma. I like them because I like the way they laugh. You get it? Get it? Which means personality. Which means communication. So, I have to make a choice. Here's the choice. If you're going into a position and you're trying to gain a position and you're already there, you have to make the choice. Do you want to, just kind of stay under the radar? And if you don't know, and somebody else did tell me about, well, how do you find a hiring manager? Because that's what she asked me. She said, do you know the hiring manager? Who's the hiring manager? You need a word. Somebody got to vouch for you while you're there. Now, when you're not there, you're applying externally. It's almost like I'm applying externally, but I'm already in the building, but you still got to know somebody. You still got to know somebody. And that's what I learned today. Now, I haven't had that happen in other, before, like when I was doing API support and stuff like that. I was already doing that. I'm already in the place. I applied. I'm interviewing while I'm there. Offer on the table. I didn't have to know nobody. They just, hey, you got the skill set. You've been there already. All right, let's bring you back. This place, their environment's a little different. So now I know the lay of the land. There wasn't going to be anybody that broke that down to me to this. I had to sit down with this sister and I had to ask questions. And she remembers me because I met her before. She was already permanent when she came in. She moved up to that position that I'm trying to get at. And I said, well, how do you like this? I said, it's cool, but I can't use none of my skills. She said the same thing with me. I had to, and she rapidly moved up. And I told her, she said, is there folks like you in your area, this, that, and the third? I said, well, I try to talk to the folks that I know that, like I told her, I said, when I met you, first time I could just tell just by the energy. I said, okay, she's solid. We don't even have to talk. We just know. She said, it's the energy, it's the vibe. Yes. It's you know what I'm saying? This is the same person I told y'all that story about, where she was like, hey, where's your people from? And I'm like, yeah, my folks is from here and this, that, and the third. She's like, oh, my folks from the Caribbean. She hit me with the paperwork check real quick. But she remembered who I was because the last time I seen her, it was a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? And so we kind of conversed a little bit like, okay, and I'm like, well, check out this certification or something like that. Because, I see where she was at. I said, okay, you doing the tech support stuff? And I said, okay, I know she's smart. You might want to check this out. She might have checked it out. She didn't remember at the time. I said, yeah, check out Kubernetes. That was that was over 6 months ago. And she remembered me like, hey, I remember you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? And so, you gotta get around and you gotta go talk to people and stuff like that. That's a challenge for me coming out my shell because I've been working remote for so long, and then this thing about personal space and all that kind of stuff. So that's the thing. Do you want your personal space and be where you're at, or do you want to get where you're trying to get? You're gonna have to make that choice. So that's a question for you. Do you want to stay where you're at, or do you want to mingle and then get where you at? Now, once you start mingling, that spigot's on. So everybody's going to be expecting you to do a whole lot of mingling and everything. You see? So that's how that environment works. So I'll post some of those positions in this video as I edit it. I'm going to show y'all some of these positions at the end of the video, maybe at the beginning of the video too, and we'll rock out. This is supposed to be an 8-minute video. I'm trying to trim these joints down.